So again, typically if we're going to import any extensions into our Unity project, to do that, like Probuilder and ProGrids, you're just going to come up to Tools, or I'm sorry, not Tools, my bad. You're going to come to Window, Package Manager, and inside Package Manager is where you'll find Probuilder, ProGrids, and any other extensions we'll add going forward this semester. ProGrids, the way to find it, you might not find it initially in there. You got to make sure you're selecting and seeing Show Preview Packages, and then you can add ProGrids. I typically like to use ProGrids just because of the snapping feature. It's really, really nice to use that. So just a heads up on that. You can find those right there, Probuilder, ProGrids. Just make sure you have Show Preview Packages selected. Okay, so in my scene, initially when I start up my scene, I have my camera and my light. The light's usually pretty intense for Probuilder, so I like to take it down to like 0.75. If it's at 1, when you bring in a Probuilder object, let's bring in a cube here, and I'll build it. It's pretty blown out, right? It's just like white, so as you start building, it's kind of hard to see things. Whereas if you just decrease that light a little bit, it'll just help you see things a little bit better. So I typically like to go to like 0.75. Then it kind of gives you more of a gray instead of this like blinding white look. Okay, so inside Probuilder, again, if you ever need to make a new shape, you just go up to this New Shape dialog, and the way I have this Probuilder in my interface right here is, again, when it loaded up with the Probuilder, once you add this tool in, which you can find under Tools, Probuilder window, and the same with ProGrids, this little widget right here that's under ProGrids window. I always like to dock this into my interface, and typically right on the side of my scene right there, so I can see all my Probuilder tools as I start building. Okay, now to start, if I want to bring an object in from Probuilder, you have this New Shape tool. So in here, if you open this little plus sign, it will start off with the tool that you have selected. So you could just click New Shape, and it'll just give you automatically a cube to work with. And it always uses the last tool that you used. But if I want to use a different one, I just do the plus sign, select the shape I want. Typically I use cube and just modify it, but there's a lot of helpful ones in here, like the stairs are really great, and some other ones if you want to create different ones. And so I'm building a castle for this demo, so I probably will be using some of the stairs and some of the arches and other pieces in here as we go forward. But just know that if you need to select other pieces besides the cube, it's under the shape selector. Once you initially click that plus sign, you're going to get a preview of your object in Probuilder. So it'll be this bluish hue until it's actually selected. So until you actually click build, it won't be in your scene. When you click build, there it is. It's ready to go and ready to be modified. So in Probuilder, when you have Probuilder activated in your interface, you have these tools at the top. You have your object selection, your vertex selection, your edge selection, and your face selection. And these let you modify the different components of your Probuilder object. If at any time I need to focus on a particular object in my scene, or you can see I'm kind of a little bit far away right now with my camera, if I just click on the object and hit the F key, that'll zoom in on it so I can see it a lot better, right? And it'll also orbit around. When you hit F, it'll focus on that. So whenever I orbit, that's my center point of my view. And that really helps too when we start building more of the elements. You'll see I start doing that a lot for the different Probuilder objects that I build for my scene. I typically like to create a library of different Probuilder objects to use if I'm doing level design. So I'll do like a fancy staircase, a fancy archway, a door, a wall piece, like a lot of kind of modular pieces. Think modular when you're building a level, like things you can reuse over and over on your level, like a cool column, whatever. And then we just kind of start using those and scattering those everywhere we go. And for this demo, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start just from basic Probuilder objects, and then we'll get into textures, bringing those in. We'll get into actually bringing some Unity terrain in, lighting. We'll mess with a little bit of the UVs in Probuilder. This will all really help you going forward in your guys' designs, especially for your level designs. This is going to be a little bit of a crash course, but I think you guys will totally get it as we go forward. So to start, again, I have my new shape in Probuilder, and to edit that, I have my little selection tools up here. And so the face tool is primarily the one that I use mostly in Probuilder. If I'm editing a Probuilder object, I don't really get into the edges too often. You can, but you're getting into more finite editing when you get into that. Whereas your face selection, it's just kind of, it is what it is, right? It's just the faces as you go. And in my Pro Grids, I like to keep my units set to 1 to start, and then I'll probably knock it down to 0.5 when I start getting a little more detail in, and then 0.25 when I start getting more detail beyond that. But when I'm roughing things out or just getting basic things done, I start with 1 because 1 unit size is a really good metric to run with, especially if you're building things at a point of 1, right? So just remember 1 unit size. It's really easy to start from there, and then you can start iterating beyond that. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this little cube here, and we're just going to turn this into a wall section. So what I'm going to do is with my cube selected and with that little face selected right there, I'm just going to drag this cube out to 10. So right now, let's see, we got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? And then I'm just going to come up to probably 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, we'll do 5. We'll do 5. There's my wall section, right? Now, if I wanted to add on to that, actually, you know what? Let's go down to 4 so we can add a little detail. Or I'm sorry, 5. We'll go down to 5, and then we'll hold Shift to extrude. Remember, that's our extrude function in Probuilder, and I'm going to drag up 1. So when I do that, now it's separated this into 2 chunks, right? I've got the lower bottom piece I did, and then I shifted up another section that I can edit, right? With this section selected, now I can also shift drag out a piece. So let's say we're going to do like a little ledge, right? For the top of my wall, and then maybe at the bottom of this wall here, I'm also going to extrude out and do another ledge at the bottom, all right, just to add a little bit of detail into this. Now, when I start with a piece, I start with 1 unit size to actually, create the big chunks, right? But then to do detail, I'll come into my Pro Grids and I'll knock it down to like 0.5, and then that'll let me bring in like my edge tool and do little detail variations, like pull that edge in just half the way, things like that, right? So really quickly you can kind of edit that as you see fit. Let's just add one more little detail element on this wall. Let's say I'm going to put a little indentation in the side. I'll click on this edge, and inside my Probuilder tools, if I ever need to add an edge loop or anything into my Probuilder objects, you go to this insert edge loop, and you can find those, your bevels, your edge loops, your subdivisions, all that kind of stuff you can find down in these red tools. They're always highlighted down there with these red edges. So by clicking this edge right here, if I just come in and say, you know what, I'm going to insert an edge loop, I can see where that edge loop is on my object, right, and place it accordingly. So I'll put one right there, and then I'm going to take another one, I'm going to click this edge, insert edge loop, and I'm going to put another one right there. All right, so that gives me a little more geometry now that I can edit on my particular object. So I can come into this piece and maybe just pull it out and come into my, maybe we'll just bring it up a little bit like that. All right. So now we have more of just like instead of just some simple shape, we have something with a little more kind of detail that we can add to it, especially if we start adding textures and things like that into our Probuilder objects, right? So really what I do when I'm doing Probuilder is I start creating these chunks, right? So here's one piece. We'll say that's our wall. That's good to go, right? Let me bring this back to 1. Back to 1, done. Okay, so I've got my wall piece. That's good to go, right? And if I needed to reuse that, I could just, Command D and reuse it and all that kind of stuff. But right now, I'm not worried about duplicating them because I want to get them all textured and set up before I get to that point, right? So we'll just keep our one wall piece, and this one's ready to go. Oops, just okay, there we go, right? And in my hierarchy, just so I know what I'm doing, I'm just going to call that wall, right? And the way to think about this is you're just kind of creating a palette of stuff to use, right? When you're doing level design, like think about the core pieces you want to start making, and then we'll start kind of filling them in and adding them. And the great thing is too, these pieces can be modified once they're in our level. So I don't have to use a wall that's 10 units every time. The great thing with Probuilder is, as I go forward, if the wall didn't really fit my design, I could always just kind of shrink it down if I needed to as I go forward, right? So I'm just going to create a base piece to use, and then any modifications I need to make to that I can do as I start designing my level, right? Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is just create like a floor tile. I've got a wall piece, but let's make a little floor tile. So to do that, I'm going to come up to my new shape, and in here I'm going to build a cube. I'm just going to build it. And this is the same way too. I'm just going to build a sample piece of flooring to use. And I'll just make it like 10 by 10 or 5 by 5. So 10 by 10, why not? Go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then I'll grab the side right here and I'll just pull it out. I'm not extruding, just pulling it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so I got a nice little square piece of flooring I can use for my Probuilder object, right? And again, I'm just making a series of pallets of stuff I can use. So I've got a piece of flooring, I've got a wall. Now let's go ahead and make like a column, right? We're building a castle, so let's build a column piece. And same thing, I'll use a new shape this time. So we'll come in and say, okay, let's make a new shape. Let's use a cylinder. It's probably pretty good. Cylinder. And the radius, I'll make the radius, I want to make them solid numbers because we're working in units, so I'll make the radius like 4. That's pretty big. Let's go 2. And the number of sides, I'm going to knock that down to 6. I'll keep it even, like an even amount of numbers. So 6. And the height, let's go ahead and make that height larger. So we'll make the height, I don't know, what's a good height? I mean, this guy like 6 tall or 7 tall. Let's go 8. We'll go 8 tall, and then we'll add some divisions in there too. So the height segments, this is a great thing about these Probuilder items is you can kind of preset little divisions and pieces in there so you can edit these on the fly, right? So the height segments will come in, and let's just add, I don't know, let's add 4, well, let's add 5, so we can add some different detail to it. Smooth, that's fine for now. We'll say build, right? So now it gave me this object, but I've got all this extra geometry I can play with, right? So in here I can come in and select the middle of these columns. Now the one thing you got to worry about is when you have objects in Probuilder that have angles, especially like these angles right here, a lot of times those angles don't necessarily match up with the snapping. So we're going to go ahead and turn our snapping off just for something like a column, and that's just short term. So I don't want to have those snapping, because if I do start moving this, you'll see like it might not, it seems like it's snapping back okay, but I might come into issues, especially if I start resizing it down and things of that nature. But I'm going to go ahead and turn that off for now, and I'll show you in a second why. But this will allow me to just kind of come in, I'm going to grab that edge and just kind of start modifying the edge loops on here to kind of create an interesting looking column. I know the top and the bottom are good in terms of the grid, but these inner parts I can kind of just add a little bit extra to, just to kind of make it more of a interesting looking piece, right? So I'll come in here and I'll just select these edges around here. And whoops, my bad. And bring those together. Maybe I'll move this down a little bit. All right, just so it looks like a more interesting column. Okay, I'll move this up. And you'll notice some of the textures on here get a little construed, and we'll fix all that later when I show you guys how to edit the UVs of stuff. But that's pretty good, right? Nice little column for us to use. So again, there's another building block piece, and we'll just put that down in our palette of stuff that we're going to use for this castle, right? So we've got a column, right? We could always include that into our walls if we need to, or we could use it by itself, right? That's a pretty good piece. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to duplicate this wall and make a entranceway out of it. So I'm going to modify it and probably make 2 pieces to make an entranceway. So I'm just going to duplicate this as well, and D, bring this over here, and we'll modify this and turn it into a doorway. Let me just name these really quickly. So I've got my floor, and I've got this column. All right, and then I've got this piece, which is going to become my doorway. But the reason I want to use this wall is so if I attach it to a doorway, I can make it seamlessly attach, right? So it's good to like reuse pieces a lot. If you're building stuff in ProBuilder, you want to think about like reusing stuff that you make all the time. Like the more you can reuse and have it connect, the better and more seamlessly things are going to look, right? So in here on this wall, I'll just call this a door side. All right. And on my door side, I'm going to grab my little points here. And to grab points, if you want to grab a bunch of them, you have to make sure they're all visible. If I try to grab from the reverse side, it only grabs what it can see. So you'll notice if I do that, it won't grab those backside ones, right? So you have to come in and see those to actually grab them. Now there is a setting in here that will let you let you select stuff in the background, but I think it's actually select hidden off. If you turn that to on right here, then if I go to my object and I select the entire thing, it'll select what it can't see behind it. So it's kind of like a little mode right here. And that's the one thing about ProBuilder is, you know, it has this kind of textual toolbar, which isn't the greatest, but you can just kind of really quickly look through those names and see what works and what doesn't, or what option is on or off. I think the toggles here are your blue ones, so they try to kind of color code it if they can. But typically I like to keep that off because it keeps me from grabbing stuff behind, and I'll just rotate to find what I need. That's kind of your preference. So I'm just going to rotate this down, or I'm sorry, move this down. So that's one side to my door right here. And then I'll go ahead and add in a door piece. So I'll go to my new shape, and I'll go to door, right there. That looks pretty good. We'll say build. And if you ever need to rotate things or click things or snap things when you're rotating things with ProBuilder, with the object selected, if you hold the command key when you rotate, it'll snap the rotation to a specific degree. So it's kind of hard if you don't and you try to manually do it, right? You're not going to get it perfect. You can look at your rotations, right? But if you hold command and rotate, you'll get 15-degree snaps, right? So I got 15, 30, 60, 90, right? So you can get a lot on there. So with that door selected, let's come in here and just kind of align this where it needs to be. That door is maybe a little small, but that's okay. So I'll put that right at the front here. And you can see this was made at 0.5. I should have made it 1, but that's fine. We'll edit it. So in my settings here, I'm going to go back to 0.5. I'm going to grab the front of this door and just pull it forward 1. So that syncs up. All right. And then I'll probably just grab the whole back of this right here. Make sure I grab those. Pull this up so it matches the door height. Right? Something like that. Okay. Now what I can do is just reuse this door side. Or actually, let's fill it in really quickly. So right here, we need to fill in the top of this door because right now we can only see the front and the back of it. And the interior, there's nothing on the top and the bottom, just empty. So we need to fill in that space. So with this door frame right here, I can just come in and with my edge tool, I need to knock this down to probably 0.25 just to get a little more movement. I can add a edge loop in here, move that to where it needs to be right about there. And then what I can do, and I'll show you a really nice tool in ProBuilder, is I can extrude this out to the middle right there, right? And then I can grab this piece and just go down to the mirror tool, which is, where's the mirror tool at? There is a mirror tool in here somewhere. There we go, mirror objects, right? I can say mirror. I'm going to mirror it on the, I believe it's the Z actually. And I'm going to duplicate. I'm going to say mirror, right? So there it gives me that piece over here. And I can just bring it back and snap it right in, right? So really quickly, you know, just by modifying some pieces, you can quickly create a new object just by kind of stacking them together. So I've got some sides to my door side, door. I'll just put these inside the door. And now I have one object, right? I've got my door. Okay, so I've got my door object, I've got my wall, bring this back to 1. You see I usually bounce up and down between 1, 5, and 1, 0.5, and 0.25 for my snapping whenever I'm building a level, right? Okay, those are looking good. Now we'll probably do, okay, so we've got these like kind of standalone columns that we could use for here and there. Let's go ahead and, you know what, I'm going to reuse one of those for like a pyre or like a little fire element or a detail element in my castle. So I'm just going to reuse this column to do that. So I'm just going to duplicate it. I do a ton of reusing stuff when I'm rebuilding levels. Let me come in here and select hidden on so we can grab that. And I'll just pull this down right there. And maybe bring this down to 0.25. Change my snapping. Grab these pieces. Grab these pieces. And I'll just start bringing some of these down and kind of fill in the. Something like that'll work. Bring this part up. So maybe I can use this as like a nice little detail element in my castle for like a fire or something, right? If you ever want to scale into something, I could select my top right here. And for this, I'm actually going to turn my snapping off because you're going to notice some major issues with that if you have your snapping on. But with the shift key held down, I'm just going to scale in. And then shift again. And just pull down to like extrude into something, right? So then I have a little kind of element. And I could just scale it, could just scale this whole thing down if I wanted to make it smaller. Right, something like that. So a lot of squishing and pulling and just modifying things so they work, right? So there's my little pyre, right? I've got a door, I've got a wall, I've got a floor, I've got a column. Got a lot of pieces here that I could probably build a castle with, right? Let's just add some other little column bits, and then we should be good. Okay? Maybe a stairway. Oh, that's what we'll do. We'll add a stairway. Okay. And if I wanted to do like a big gate, I could just reuse this door right here, and Command D, I'll just duplicate it, right? And let me bring this back to 1. If I wanted to make this like some giant gate, I could select all of this. That you can do merging, which is really nice in Probuilder. So with all those selected, I could just say merge objects and make it into one piece. Wow, that didn't work. Hold on. Oh, you know what? I don't think they can be children of the object. If I select all those and then say merge, there we go. It'll make it one object for me. So there, with that one object selected, now I can. There we go. That's weird. It doesn't want to let me select the interesting. Doesn't want to let me select the points, which is weird. Okay, interesting. Sometimes it's buggy. That's weird. It should let me do that. It lets me select my edges, but just not my points there, which is kind of interesting. Huh. Well, that didn't work as well as I expected. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that and use this door again and just modify that, right? So sometimes you'll run into issues. You know, Probuilder doesn't have the greatest functionality at certain points, so you might just have to get around it creatively. So there we go, my door. I'll just move these pieces out a little bit. There we go. Now that works. Grab that, bring that over if I want to make like a gate piece. Bring this down to 0.25. And right here, you know, I could make some kind of detail element or make this even higher if I wanted to, just to make it match, right? So I could come in here and say, you know what, let's make these a little bit higher. maybe on this door right here, we'll also make that a little bit higher. Bring that up, and we'll add some detail bit in the top right here. So maybe I'll come in and add a new shape right here, like a cube. And with this cube, I'll just put this up in my door. Slot at the top. Just kind of fill in the gaps right here. Give myself some kind of detail element. I don't know. Something like that, right? Maybe have it come out a little bit farther. All right. And if you want to get fancy, you can always come in and add little detail elements to things. Turning your snapping off, coming in with like your scaling. You can scale out and then scale up, right? Add little detail bits here and there, right? If you want. There's a lot you can do with Probuilder. I could reuse that pyre that I made right here, duplicate it, maybe throw it up on the top of this guy. Right up there, maybe make it a little bit smaller. Scale it down, scale it up. Now I've got a nice little torch element, right? That's starting to look like a Roman thing. So there's a lot you can do just with Probuilder. I highly recommend it as a really good tool to kind of accomplish these little tasks, right? So let me throw these two elements into my door. There we go, right? We've got our fancy door, our entrance door or gate or something like that, right? So let's see. Let me just add a couple more elements, and then I'll get into just applying some materials to these. Editing those materials, and then we'll start building out the actual castle, right? So I've got a nice little palette of stuff I can use right here, but we can go farther with that. Okay, so let's just add in. We'll do one more column bit with maybe some type of platform on the top, and I think that should be it. And maybe some blocks that we can put on the top of these to make it more castle-like. Okay, so to do that, again, I'm just going to come into my new shape. And a lot of this comes from I'm obviously doing this on the fly, but if I actually conceptualize this design out and sketched it on paper, I'd have a better idea of what I'm going to build for this level, right? If I was, thinking of a particular design or had something in mind, I could reference those and kind of go back and forth. Where the kind of the nice thing about Probuilder is you can just iterate on the fly, so you can just build stuff as you go kind of thing. Or you can follow a design and try to get it as close to that as possible. So in here, let's go ahead and we'll just make a couple different columns and maybe a top decorative piece, and that should be it. All right, so I'm going to come in here. First, at this point, it's probably a good time to save the scene. So I'm going to go File, Save As, and inside Unity in my Assets folder, remember everything we do in Unity always sits in our Assets folder. I'm going to come down to my Scenes folder, and in here I'm just going to call it Castle. Save that. All right. So, all right, again, let's make one more piece. So my new shape, let's grab a cube. It's great. Use that guy. Turn my grid back on. We'll set it to 1. And I'm constantly going back and forth between the grid, Probuilder, making shapes, moving them, iterating, right? So here, let's go ahead, let's make this right next to the wall here so we have like a transfer piece we can use. Let me just move these over. Move these guys over real quickly, right here. And this guy, I'm just going to come over here and put into position and just start editing, right? So I'll bring this out a little more. We'll do 3 by 3. That's good. And we will bring this up. Okay, that's pretty good. And then maybe in here we will turn my grid off. So I'll go to off. I'll use my shift tool to extrude. I'll bring that up a little bit. And then I'll extrude up. All right. Just get a little platform kind of on the top right there. All right. So I've got this piece to use, and if I wanted to, again, I could come in and add some extra elements in here. So I could go to my Insert Edge Loop tool, put these at certain spots, so maybe one right there, Insert Edge Loop, another one right here, right, and I could select that ring and then do a little extrusion right there, so I could just extrude out that piece as well. So that's something to connect to, and at the bottom I could do some kind of bottom piece. So I come into the bottom here, insert an edge loop, move that to where it needs to be. Say, I don't know, right about there maybe, and then grab those bottom elements. So select those and then kind of extrude those out. So here I could just shift out, bring those out a little bit. All right, and then maybe on one side I pull it forward. Let's go ahead and turn our something like that. Oh, and you know, because I have these sides here, I'd probably want to get those. And we'll make those 0.5. Line those up. All right, so there's that and that. This back one, make sure that's 0.5. All right, and you know, maybe this too. So everything snaps. Okay, cool. So we've got a nice little bulky column. We've got this wall we can use. We've got a doorway. We've got a gateway. We've got a floor piece. We've got another column. Let's see, is there anything else we can add in here? Oh, staircase piece, right? A little staircase piece. So to do that, just like I did before, I'll come in and just make another piece in here. We'll go new shape, and here I'll do stair. And we'll make this stair, yeah, sure, 6 by 3 by 6, that's great. Steps, 14, sure, keep that, say build. And go ahead and swing this around. So it's at the same angle as everything else. And I'll just add some little handles to the side of this, or like railing. So we'll come in here, just line these up so they're the same right there. Okay. Then I'll come in with my cube, new shape, and we'll do cube. We'll say build, and I will get this in place. So put that right next to that right there, and I'll just iterate on that, right? So I'll pull this out. This up, do something fun like that, and then maybe I'll just bring this front part down. I'm going to bring that up just a little bit like that. Okay, great. And we'll go ahead and duplicate that. All right, so I've got stairs, I've got rails. And I'll just take those and put those into my stairs. Let's just make sure we're organized here. I think this is pretty good for all the pieces to build my castle. Again, all I was doing was just creating like a little palette, right? So we've got some different things we can start building this environment with, right? We can come back and add more later, but this will give us some pretty good building blocks to kind of run with. So I've got my stairs, I've got the column, let's call that a big column. And then we've got our door. Let's call that our gate. We've got another column. We've got our other door column. Okay, great. All the good stuff's in there, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply some materials to these objects.